Good afternoon guys, and welcome to today's vlog. Today brings us to Salcey Forest. This is South Northamptonshire. Rachel is having a warm caffeinated beverage. Don't know why with the temperature in its sort of 80s, but there you go. I thought I would bring things down a bit, not so high octane this week. It's 80 degrees temperature wise, so what better place to be than in the shade of the woods. So I've got a couple of stories to tell you. One is something which is pretty terrifying that happened here and unusual and bizarre. The other one is more of a friendly tale. Both of them are true, both of them happened here, both of them still have signs of things that have happened here. So anyway, let's go and do this. The way this path stroke roadway, which is all broken off, leads off on the main road over there, leads me to believe it must be 1930s, 1940s, so that would make it military. So with that being said, and this being a wooded area, I would imagine somewhere in this vicinity there probably are military bunkers. So I'll keep my eye out just in case I see something. See, someone's had a little bit of a fire here. Yeah, that looks like steel girder. There's a trodden path going into the thicket. Alright, yep, I can see brickwork, so there's certainly some sort of military something there, possibly old munitions bunker. See if I can get through this thicket. This is of course where I get stung to pieces by the nettles. I'm not going deep down into that because that would sting you, but yeah, these are Second World War munitions bunkers. Not as a permanent thing, probably more of an overnight stop-off point. People come down, the RAF, Army, etc., on the way to places to be out of sight from German bombers during the Second World War. They would have hunkered down round here. This would have given some sort of level of protection, and then they would have continued on their journey to probably an airfield somewhere. Now is, of course, one of these bunkers in this wooded area that led to a find in 1984, which was that of detonating devices, which was all to do with the IRA and their campaign during the early and mid 80s. I don't know whether I've told you the story before. When I was about 10 years old, I think it was 81 I would have been 10, so yeah, that makes it about right. Money for everyone is sort of always hard to come by, so you have your holidays, you wouldn't have a lot to do during the summer, and most people would be shipped off to their grandparents for a week here or there. We were no different, of course, and we spent a couple of weeks with both our nan and granddad on the other side up in London, and me nan was part of NAFI, and she took us to, I think it was Hamleys, and then we had a meal. That meal happened to be in the old Wimpy bar on Oxford Street. Now we was in there minding our own business, didn't know nothing of it, but we got on the 159 bus to go back to Brixton, Streatham Hill, etc., where my nan lived, and we see smoke in the distance. Got home, telly was turned on, and then, as history tells us, there was a guy who went in there to disarm an IRA bomb, and he was blown up in the toilet area of the Wimpy bar. So it's a very sad story, and yeah, we come that close to being involved in it. I'm going to see if I can get on the other side of that. These are good finds, guys. If you can get across one of these, it's history right here. I'm not so much going to come across any wild animals. We don't have them so much here in the UK. Foxes, badgers, etc. possibly, but they ain't going to cause you any harm. They'll run away. Perhaps an adder, snake. UK's most venomous snake could be here. Time of year, the sun out, could be out sunning itself, and I could come encounter with that, but shouldn't be. Anyway, this would have been your entrance. This would have been a blast area, and you go through, mind the spider webs and the cave spiders, and this would have been your bunker area. Obviously people could have hunkered down in here as well. People obviously dumped rubbish here over the years. But yeah, if you're into this sort of thing, it's a fascinating find. If you're not, it's just some old brickwork in amongst the woods. So it looks as if that could have been a roofing extract there. I believe there might be one further round as well. Can't really see it on Google Earth, but where there's one, there's usually another one. There are ramblers and people walking around this forest. This is Salcey Forest. If you go off the beaten track, nobody knows you're here at all. A glorious day weather-wise. If I just pan up there to the sky, not a cloud in the sky. It's about 80 degrees, no wind, a few bugs about here and there. Been stung a few times by the weeds, etc. Yeah, it's just good to be one with nature again. Let me tell you guys about two stories I know about this area. They've come to light over the last couple of months, and it's pretty much my main reason for being here. I do love to get out with be one with nature, be amongst the foliage, the wild animals, etc. that we have out here, because they're not going to cause us any harm. But I come across two stories. One really bizarre one, which is quite sinister, well, actually it's very terrifying to be honest with you, and the other one is quite a pleasant story which goes back to the time of the Second World War. So I'll tell you guys about those. It was Easter around 1983. The two men walking around in this thicket area in close proximity to Horsebox car park here in Salcey Forest found a very grim discovery. They walked along the thicket, there were some flies buzzing around, etc., and they come along the two bundles in low-lying leaves amongst the thicket area. Unfortunately, them two bundles contain the remains of one Debbie Fallon, aged 19, and one David Cox, aged 23. Now, they were both murdered here, they believe possibly a year earlier, because all they found was decomposing remains, partial skeleton remains, and the only way of identifying them was by their dental records. Now, finding them led to an investigation, and it come to a real bizarre, sinister, yet also terrifying crime. Investigations led detective to an element of sort of local biker gangs, etc. At the time, biker gangs were pretty common. They probably are still nowadays, not like they were in days of old. But there's one particular biker gang that was something called Lucifer's Home or so. They're all to be along the lines of the Hells Angels. Now, the Hells Angels, as we know, are not depicted generally in that sort of term, because these are the guys that are at the forefront of your charity work, going out in the community, doing wonderful things with handicapped and other disabled people, and turning up to events, and just a great bunch of guys living out their lives with their generally Harley Davidson motorcycles, and they are fantastic people to meet. However, there was a certain group, a certain element, these ones that the Lucifer's lot, which were pretty much wanting to stamp their claim, wanting to leave their mark, perhaps wanting to rule with fear, etc. Now they took it upon themselves. Actually, it wasn't a whole group, it was two guys in particular who, I don't know, maybe they become disillusioned with the likes of your Hollywood movies, which depicts the biker guys in a terrifying vein sometimes. Both the 19-year-old Debbie Fallon and the 23-year-old, spit my teeth out, David Cox, were lured here under, I don't know what sort of pretentious reasons or whatever, maybe for a meet, etc. They were lured here, and this would lead to their death, their murder. Debbie was tied to a tree and slowly strangled to death. David was also tied to a tree where he was tortured and received multiple stab wounds, and he would ultimately meet his demise also. Now the two culprits, who I shall not name because I don't want to give them any more notoriety, any infamy, etc., they would have got away with the crime if it wasn't for the simple fact that when they went to dig the shallow graves, well, they weren't supposed to be shallow graves, they were supposed to be dug well without the reach of the general population within here. I mean, I've walked through here, obviously I know about the history of some of the bunkers, so I'm coming in here. If you didn't know, you'd have no reason to come in here. So a body under the ground could lay there rotting away and you would never know. The problem they had is when they dug the graves, or started to, the shovel broke, so they were left with very shallow graves and just leaves over their bodies. And as I said, if it wasn't for these two guys at that Easter weekend coming across this grim discovery, they would have got away with their crimes. And what was the done deal, what sealed their fate of these two protagonists, is they actually took photographs at the scene to prove their sort of ceremonial rituals, should we say, to lead them to notoriety. But in other terms, they're just general murderers. But it's such a grim story, and to think that it happened here where I'm just sort of walking around, it's quite unbelievable. But is it unbelievable? Is it everywhere that we go when we go to woods? Is it just a body waiting to be found? Who knows? I just love the way that the moss has formed over the years, kind of giving it a natural hidden barrier. So if you're not paying attention, you just happen to walk past, you wouldn't glance to the side and find these things. This appears to be an old natural dried up riverbed. Not going to go too far in, just in case it does get boggy all of a sudden and I end up sinking up to my knees in muck. Yeah, that goes on for quite a way. I'm currently heading back in a southerly direction. I am in Salcey Forest, as I said, so this is South Northamptonshire, on the border with the M1 to the side. I think we've got the 508 that goes close by, if it is the 508, I'm not sure. Hartwell Road, etc. And then on to Northampton, the other direction. On that road you would have Toaster. The way we've come is through Hanslope, Havisham, Wolverton and New Bradwell, etc. just to get here. As I said, it's just a lovely tranquil day out, unless of course when you're doing urbex like myself you trip over and rip your leg open, which people say, nah, you ain't done that. Well, I have. I'll look down and I'll show you. Yeah, the perils of urbex. It's quite surprising. There are probably a good 100 or so cars parked up in the car park, but this place is so vast that you can walk around practically all day without seeing a soul. Facilities here. Parking, it varies. It depends on how long you want to be up here. If you want to be up here just to walk your dog, I would say just park on the verge. There is room there. Over the years the earth has worn away like this for natural car parking spaces, as opposed to paying, which we have done. We've paid for an all-dayer. Rachel's sitting currently around by the cafeteria area. This is certainly not her cup of tea, especially getting ripped to pieces by fawns, stung by nettles, and basically generally falling over on slopes and ripping your legs open. So yeah, she's sitting back there. Cafeteria is reasonably priced. Standard fare, coffee, tea, cakes, desserts. I believe there's ice cream, etc. There is a visitor centre where you can get your trail maps, etc. as well. And I believe there's some little souvenir-y things, because I believe there's the likes of a Gruffalo trail, so you've got little keyring Gruffalos, etc. and the characters that are associated with him. They're on sale, but obviously they come at a premium price being in the location. The area used to be synonymous and famous for its skywalk, like a walkway. If those of you who might live in the London area, some other areas have had them. Remember Battersea had a walk in amongst the trees at a high level. This was about, I don't know, perhaps 25-30 feet up. Walked in amongst the tops of the trees, and I don't know, maybe they just didn't treat the wood or something like that, but over the years it fell into a bit of disrepair, and now the cost of actually making it workable again outruns the costs of what is available. So I believe they're in the process, if I haven't already, I haven't had a look over that area yet, if they haven't totally demolished it, they are in the process of doing so and putting up some sort of other adventure trail area. You have a mixture. You can either stick to a concrete path that sort of has a perimeter all the way around, or, as I like to do, go off the beaten track. It's just more pleasant. Okay, a far more pleasant story to bring to you now. Obviously I've told you about the macabre, the terrifying story of the, I don't know whether they were a couple or not, but Debbie and David, who were slaughtered here in these woods back in the 80s. But we've got to go a lot further back, a further 40 years in fact, back to 1944, the Second World War, heavily in process. A war which shouldn't have happened, because prior to that we had a war to end all wars, being the First World War. But that's another story. Anyway, this area was struggling. The people who live locally, Castlethorpe, etc., needed to move trees. The machinery they had, old steam engines, etc., was really struggling. They were getting beyond repair. And now Salvation, their hero, should we say even, spit my teeth out again, come in the form of something that happened. A train went past. 2 carriages were left behind on that train, and our 2 heroes appeared. Our heroes were not in the shape of human form. They were 2 Asian elephants that got separated from a travelling circus. I'm not sure where that circus was going, but these 2 Asian elephants were certainly a sight for the people of Castlethorpe as they walked along the platform area. And the RAF brought them into their family, even gave them a squadron number, and it was an old now, but a young Indian actor that had worked on the sets of something to do with a Baghdad movie, etc. But he'd worked on the sets in Pinewood Studio. He became their friend and trainer and would look after them as a keeper. And now what they got the elephants to do was to do logging. Now logging was commonplace in the likes of Asia, India, etc. And they believed, which was true, certainly in this case, the elephants would make light work and probably enjoy actually doing it. And they did just that. The elephants set about clearing parts of the forestry area for the RAF, put in these bunkers like you've seen me explore a bit earlier, and they would go about their day. I don't know how many trees they would clear in a day. Certain areas, obviously they didn't cut them down, but their job was to drag them along, which for an elephant is very light work. It's like myself or yourself carrying a branch, because of the general size of the animals. And why is it significant that I'm here in these woods? Well, obviously this is where they were, but with that walkway that is either no longer with us or soon to be no longer with us, there was an area that will still be there called the Elephant Pond. And it's called the Elephant Pond because at the end of a day's work, or fun as they would have been, the elephants would go down there, have a general play, a swim and a wash in a local pond area. And there's even a trail depicted to them now called the Elephant Trail here in these woods. And to me, obviously I have a fascination because I just generally love animals. Elephants especially are right up there at the top of my list, and so I thought I'd bring you that story, and we'll make our way now at some point, working our way through this forest to where the actual elephant pond is, and that's a perfect ending for the story. Now I guess the $64,000 question, or the $1 million question, is what happened to the elephants? Well, obviously we know the war ended, and I don't know, obviously there is those who will say that the elephants belong in the wild. They were taken away from a circus, so they were rescued in a way. They done their work for the RAF, although they deemed it to be more fun. And when that time was over, when the Second World War ended, both our Asian elephants uprooted from this area and went to live out their lives, I believe happily, at Chester Zoo. So we do have an ending, and I'm sure they were looked after. As opposed to public land that I'm on, public right-of-way, public right-of-ways, etc., that there is private land, but within that private land there are some huge oak trees. One called a milking oak, fallen oak, etc., and some of these are over 800 years old. which, come to think of it, that's a long period of time. 1200. Top of my head, I couldn't even tell you who the king was in that period of time. I suppose we're still under the Norman era. That would have been 1066, so a couple of hundred years after that the infrastructure would have been in place, the likes of the Tower of London, etc. But interesting nonetheless. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little jolly, this little jaunt. I've enjoyed it, apart from ripping my leg open for sure. But I can't do high octane constantly. It's a strain on the body walking about. I mean, at some point last week I actually went, I suppose you could say, sun blind. I got burnt pretty badly and the sun permeated through my sunglasses, and my eyes have been generally sore all week. And with the heat, currently we've got a period of maybe up to 2 weeks where the weather's going to be pretty ferocious for the UK. So I thought, you know what, let's get in the woods, relax it down a bit before we get and go again next week. And as you know, I fly by the seats of my pants, so you just don't know what you're going to get. It could be an urbex, it could be an Explorer, could be up the zoo, could be London, could be anything. But there's certainly plenty coming up. Hope to get back to Santa Pod, see some racing at some point. Motocross is a given, I absolutely love that, and the guys I'm delivering that to are enjoying every moment as much as anything else. That is certainly not about me, that's about them giving something back, and they get a chance to enjoy it, even see themselves on video, which is really, really cool, especially if you're just starting out and you don't generally get it. You get to see the top riders. I'll cover every aspect of it from novice right up to pro, so if I get to capture you guys, even if you want to chat to me in the pits, certainly go ahead. And then of course, what else have we got coming up? Zoo, obviously. Florida is just over 100 days away now, I think, something in that region, maybe 110. But we'll be vlogging in America again, the theme parks. That is October, that's Halloween party season for us. And I've started to enjoy a bit more urbex, so as I said, I have my way of doing it. It's not the houses left with possession still in them, it's those that have been taken over by nature. Anyway, let's go and find Rach. There's a trail for if you've got youngsters, young explorers, want to go out, do some orienteering. As promised, and as I said, I don't lie about these things, I don't make them up. This is the famous elephant pond. That is obviously Cebu there, their trainer. That's them doing their logging, and this is where they used to come and bathe at the end of the day. A day like this, I could just jump in there now. Wouldn't do me any good, it doesn't look particularly pleasant, but I bet that looks fantastic to an elephant. And that was 40 odd years ago. As I said, this would have been the start to the old walkway, but fallen on sad times. Hopefully at some point they might repair this bit. They can't obviously repair the skywalk, which is over in the distance, but perhaps this bit, just so people can stand, reminisce over these two magnificent beasts that spent their time here during the Second World War. I've just got a rough look here, but I can't see whether the elephants had names. Obviously I've got a favourite elephant at Whipsnade called Donna, who's got a youngster called Nang at the moment, part of the matriarchy. But yep, it's all a true story. I don't make any of this lot up. And what they got with the walkway going, they're going to knock it down and do some more work here, so it will change slightly, but hopefully, well, I believe this bit has to remain the same. It's poignant and it's part of our history. Anyway guys, hope you've enjoyed that. I'm sure Rachel has, because all she's done is sat and had a caffeinated beverage with some sort of bottle of water and a dessert or a cake.
I had some wafers.
Some wafers. Anyway, all that while I was being attacked by a badger. No, I wasn't being attacked by a badger. I fell over and cut my leg up. Anyway guys, thank you for watching. It was just a little general walking amongst the trees, some sort of pleasantry. Hope you enjoyed it. With that guys, enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll see you in the movies. Bye for now.
Bye.
That is seriously old. We're talking coming up to maybe 1,000 years old. It's like it's almost become stone. And probably a habitat for wildlife now. Certainly interesting.